Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world. This is Nicole Sackage, and I'm here with Grant Cameron. And we have put together a quick panel to talk about TTSA and what it could mean for disclosure. And with us tonight, I'm just going to read down everybody's names real quick. And then when you get called upon to speak, you can give a short introduction if you like. But I'm going to start off with Dave Scott, who wrote a wonderful article for Joel Dodd's site, uapresearch.com. And in this article was featured quotes by Bob McGuire, Rich Giordano, Tom Whitmore, and am I forgetting somebody? If I am, I'm sorry.
No Merja.
Joe Merja, of course. Sorry, Joe, who's also here tonight. And then in a few moments, we'll be joined by Melinda Leslie and Rob Freeman. And I do want to mention Danny Silva's here tonight as well. And he wrote a blog on the Silver Record that also tied in with this TTSA discussion and disclosure. So welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, I'm here too.
Great.
Who did I leave out? I'm sorry, I didn't stay to my list.
Dave, it's okay. I'd rather keep it that way.
Hi, Dave Altman.
Hey.
Lounging Dave Altman.
That's
and
it.
Tom Whitmore has just arrived.
Hi, Tom.
I love the hoodie, Dave.
Welcome to the panel.
Hello.
Merry Christmas, everyone. And Dave Scott, why don't you start us off and tell us about TTSA and the articles you've written?
Tell us about your hair.
Well, I knew about this story a couple of months ago that it was coming down, and I think like all of us here, we have sources that you know we kind of pry to get any kind of tidbit of information. And I started hearing rumblings about this probably 4 or 5 months ago. Information is tough to go by in regards to this. And the more I started talking to my sources, the more I started learning that there was something really severe going on with the Stars Academy that may not, you know, see it survive in its current incarnation back at that time. You know, the one thing that I always learned in my days of journalism is 3 things. When you hear it once, you got a rumor. When you hear the same thing twice, it has some legs. And the next time you hear it, it's a story. And we just didn't have that one piece of information that we needed until George Knapp on Coast to Coast AM this past Sunday had Luis Elizondo on the air. And Luis all but confirmed everything. Realistically, we did not break the story. That goes to George Knapp. Danny did some great work on it as well. And, you know, we're just happy to be a part of the game with both Spaced Out Radio at uapresearch.com in order to, you know, kind of show that we're pretty serious about wanting to cover this on a real journalism level. And I think we were able to accomplish that.
And I have to say, I was in support of TTSA when they first came out until what we talked about or what I wrote about were the 3 videos, and giving us that kind of footage and saying these are the UFOs, these are real, and you can't tell what they look like. You know, it could have been, that's the difference between night and day, between FLIR and just non-FLIR footage. So I figured there's something behind this. They're not going to tell us. They're going to take us right to the door and slam it on us like they do every time. And that's how I felt. And when I looked into it, I found an article from 1993, and I'll post it later on Facebook. There was an Iraqi soldier who talked about seeing these drones, you know, when we were fighting down there, and they were doing things that drones shouldn't do. So I looked up a bunch of drones from back then and I matched it up with the gimbal, and believe it or not, it kind of looks like the little things protruding out of the, you know, you can see the little protrusions and it's turning like this. And I was kind of figuring it out. I think that this is not what we think it is. This is just regular airlines, a fighter jet. And I don't know what the go fast was, probably a bird, who knows? But I became skeptical rather quickly because of that. And I just, to this day, cannot see those as being legitimate alien craft or back engineered alien craft technology.
I mean, I'm pro whoever is going to get us information, put out videos. It's the only videos we've had
that have now been, confirmed that they're UAP. As far as it being a commercial airliner, I think that's a joke. I mean, I don't think an F-18 pilot is getting fooled by a commercial airliner. That's just ridiculous. Whether or not it's alien, I have no idea.
Unless we're lied to.
It would have to be.
I don't think Luis Elizondo is lying to us. I just don't. There's no evidence he's.
So now the government officials don't lie.
You want to think he's lying? That's fine. There's zero evidence of that. Actually, I think the best thing is ufology in a long time. Chris Mellon too. I think they don't know what it is. There are people out there that think these guys know exactly what it is. I don't think they do. But in your point, though, I'll say we need to see the entire video. So far, what's been released is interesting, but if the thing is making 90-degree turns, I want to see that. We need to see that. So far, we have not seen that. But, Mellon and Elizondo, in Dave's article, another article he wrote, they took a risk in putting that video out. So we have the video. We have no other videos to go by for now. But for now, that's what we have.
Not only that, but something obviously is happening out by Catalina Island, because to me, the fact that it was in that area just makes it more credible. I'm not saying it's an alien or extra dimensional or whatever, but that just is just one more thing, one more plus.
What do you think is going on now with TTSA? Why is this move? Because if this was picked up 6 months ago, this story, it has nothing to do with the videos. It has something to do with where are these guys going? Who's got the money? Because that's what I said is they've got to be going somewhere because they're not making, the wage of a maid at Motel 6. These guys are making some big money. So why are they leaving? What's really going on here? And this is a story that Dave has broken. And this is like almost every time when the reason I proposed we do this panel was because every time we have one of these stories, it's like there's like 3 people left who don't know that this story's happening. And everybody gets upset. Oh, wow, these people broke this story and they shouldn't be talking about it, whatever. But somebody was talking the same as somebody was talking about the triangle piece. And someone was talking when the New York Times was going. Everybody knew the New York Times was doing a story. So this story's been out for many months. I've heard about it, that these guys are leaving. And that's what I wanted to do tonight is to resolve what do people think is going on? Why are they leaving? Because I don't think it really changes anything. These guys are still very powerful spokesmen for UFOs. And I think TTSA has done a tremendous amount of material. We were in the dark before TTSA came along. I mean, whatever people want to say, whether the stories, the videos are right or the New York Times stories are right, I mean, it's a completely different world than it was in 2017. These guys opened this thing up, and you got to give them credit for that. But what's going on with these 3 guys leaving?
Now, I don't know. I'm just looking at the numbers. And I go into the cash flow statement, and they have negative operating cash flow. And then I look at the financing cash flow, and somebody is having to, they did sell some stock, to whoever, but somebody is having to put money into the business every year. And I don't care how rich you are, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 or more per year. That's a lot of money. So that's from a financial standpoint, I get the feeling that, that there are problems.
I can answer most of these questions for you, Grant.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to go to you because you put a little investment in here and you've got sort of an insight. So what do you think is going on, Danny?
Tom's focused on entertainment mostly. Some of the other guys, they haven't done as much as Lou, and they haven't done as much as Chris. I think that's evident when you look at who's speaking all the time, who's doing all the work, who's doing all the interviews. It's Lou and it's Chris, and they felt like they weren't getting backed up as much. They were not into the entertainment stuff. That Lou said that specifically on Coast. They're into the disclosure thing, and they want to continue that, and they don't want to be held back. And TTSA has, in a way, put themselves in a bad position because they were letting Lou and Chris do everything, at least above board. I can't take anything away from Hal. Dr. Putoff has done great stuff, but other people have been way in the background, like Jim Sangvan, super in the background. Me personally, I would say he wasn't pulling his weight. And Lou and Chris left, and they're going to continue doing what they do. And they're the best at what they do. And I think we can all be very grateful for what they did. As far as the videos, that doesn't have anything to do with what happened recently. Right. I mean, it doesn't discredit the videos.
Right.
We don't need to be talking about that, like you said, Grant. But that's basically it. I mean, I'm sure there's other things going on in the background too, but basically they don't want to be associated with it as much, and they don't want to have to be held back as much, and they just want to do their thing. And I think we're going to see things pretty quickly in the next year or less that goes on, and the show isn't stopping, and disclosure isn't stopping, and everything that Lou and Chris are doing is not going to stop. They've put their lives on the line, probably more so than a lot of the other members.
In a number of years, I've talked to a lot of very rich people who've been in the UFO business. One very rich guy said to me at one point, he said, Grant, he said, I've got a question for you. How the heck do you make any money at this thing? And he ended up pulling out because he couldn't make any money. So my question to you would be, and it goes to the question that George Knapp asked Lou, was who's paying their salary? Because if they're leaving, somebody's got to pay, and there's no money in UFOs. And George asked him the question, if you had the chance to go back. And that's what, when I heard George ask that question, I'm going, why is he asking that question? If you had the chance to go back, would you go back? And that was where I asked you the question during the week of whether this money had come through for the task force. The task force bill hasn't been passed. What's that?
The task force bill hasn't been passed. It should hopefully still be passed in the next few days. What was vetoed today was not the UAP task force bill. Chris Mellon is independently wealthy. I don't know if he was ever paid in the first place from To the Stars. Lou is moving on. You know, he was, I think, getting paid, or he had some sort of financial agreement with To the Stars Academy. That's obviously gone now.
When I felt TTSA was in trouble, was we saw the rollout. We saw DeLong on the stage with no press in front of him, talking to an empty room with people seated on high chairs behind him. And I felt, hey, this looks really interesting. So that's kind of when I jumped on the bandwagon and says, I'm going to figure out what's going on here, because I know every one of those guys sitting on a bar stool. Okay. So then WikiLeaks happened, and my entire view of TTSA changed the day WikiLeaks happened, and it was it was based on the assumption that DeLong was telling the basic truth, and that is he worked a really long time, really worked hard, got inside and talked to people, and then WikiLeaks happened, and the people inside saw the following, that DeLong mentioned the name of extremely important high-ranking people to John Podesta in an email. Just knowing that would have already blown it up. People in the intelligence community and in the top secret parts of the Pentagon, as soon as you do something that causes that kind of thing to happen, you're a leper. You're done. They won't talk to you. They won't pick up the phone. They won't email you. You're lucky they don't shoot you. I'm just telling you, he did himself in by having that email come out in WikiLeaks. I don't know anything else about Tom DeLong specifically, except I know how the people in the intelligence community think, how they operate, and if you screw up, you're pariah until the screw up is fixed, and it was never fixed. I believe that DeLong lost access to his advisors. The UAPTF language that came out of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence got through conference and got into the NDAA. So all of that language was put into the National Defense Authorization Act, which 2 days ago, Donald Trump vetoed. My opinion is that both houses of Congress will override the veto. I'm not sure of that, but my opinion is the NDAA will be passed over Donald Trump's veto. And if the UAPTF language is in the NDAA, it will then be law of the land. Now, so
my understanding is that the actual language is in the Intelligence Authorization Act, and the Intelligence Authorization Act didn't go through because there was a disagreement in the House about other issues besides the UAP, and they'll have to renegotiate that after the first of the year.
Regarding what you guys are saying right now with the NDA and all that, he said what really drove that is very senior people pushed for this, you know, and were briefed, okay, by To the Stars and Navy people combined, obviously. And he went on to say that that Congress voted, I said, will they force it through? He said, yes, he expected it to happen very soon because he said in the NDAA, people aren't getting paid, you know, and branches, you know, the military and intelligence literally like are in a standstill because the money is not being allocated. So he says, this is about, you know, freeing up the money. And he said, they will push it through, you know, he said that he's hearing that they do want Trump to look at it and agree, but they're prepared to, regardless, to put it through. Now, he made it sound like the wording about this, the UAP task force, you know, section is in a subsection, but it is in there. So you have the military part, you have the intelligence part, and then there's a, you know, it's in a subsection. But he said,
I want to say that was my understanding is the intelligence language, and every major agency that does work for the Pentagon, which does not include the CIA, NRO, NSA, DIA, etc., their budgets are in the NDAA, in a intelligence community subsection. Trump vetoed that bill. And if Jim is right, they will pass it soon.
What does he say about these guys leaving? Did you talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, get to the good stuff, Melinda. The good stuff.
The thing is, out of all my conversations with Jim, I felt he was the most guarded in this one. Now, we talked a lot and it was very friendly, and, you know, we even argue. You know, I've gotten to that point where I can have that kind of discussion with him. But I asked him, I just asked him so many things. One of the things was, of course, why the guys are leaving. He basically said personal reasons. So personal reasons on their part and different reasons for all three of them. Like they each have their own set of different reasons. I asked, is anyone go to work for the government? And there was a kind of a pause there and kind of a dance around in language, but he basically, the first thing he said is, it's a possibility. So I'm actually quoting him on, it's a possibility. And then additionally, he said they're weighing their options. So I took that to mean, even though he danced around it, as yes, basically, you know, I mean, he said that he said, I can't say for them what they're going to do. That's their choice. You know, he said but they are weighing their options, and it is a possibility. And he emphasized the word possibility.
So there you are, guys. You heard it here first from Melinda Leslie. Tom DeLonge is going to work for the U.S. government.
No, not Tom DeLonge.
Hey, wouldn't you think?
No. We're, specifically, if we were going to be specific, they were talking Chris and Lou.
Did they do
Melinda,
any type of?
You knew that.
Have you ever asked Jim why he doesn't do
kind
interviews?
Of press release from the entertainment company side?
Not that I'm aware of, although
there's a press release
like,
coming.
Usually an entertainment company that does movies, any type of production, does a press release. You know, I was just curious.
Okay, he didn't mention that. What he did say is everything about this will be up on their website. He made it sound like within the next 2 days. You guys were talking Christmas, so what do you bet, a couple days after Christmas? But he said everything will be up on the website. It is being worked on. What?
Is he leaving?
No, the only ones leaving, because we went over that, and he mentioned everybody's names. Jim, Tom, Meiser, Hal, advisors, you know, are all staying. The only ones leaving is Chris, Steve, and Lou, and Chris Mellon, of course. And anyway, so and that Steve is leaving for, he says each one is leaving for different reasons. They're not all leaving for the same reason. And he seemed to emphasize that. I did believe him about that. Like each one had, you know, different personal reasons.
So why are they all leaving at the same time?
There you go, Danny. They're hiring.
I mean, it's also some of the same reasons. I mean, Lou said that on Coast to Coast also.
Yeah.
What's weird is Lou said that, you know, he's not an entertainer. Then I think it was either today on Twitter, he said he's going to be joining up with a hard-hitting documentary, and that's entertainment. And for me, you need entertainment. You need to bring people in. I have no problem with that, but that's kind of a little contradictory there.
We've all witnessed it from the outside in the community. From a PR standpoint, I think they've had a real headache for a long time because their message has been sort of complicated, it's been convoluted, it's shifted and changed, which you have to do whenever you're running a business. You have to be able to pivot and move with things. But just the reactions in the community, seeing Tom's posts on Instagram, some very questionable material. I think we can all agree on that. And then the fact that he will post things and then a few hours later, to Dave's point in his article, he'll then delete them again. So
but he's always done that though. Yeah. Whoever did their research should have known that's what you're getting when you get along.
Everyone knew he was a rock star. Everyone knew the way he was. Everyone let that go. That was his, you know, personality. His
it wasn't like he was a member of the Bee Gees. He was in Blink-182. They're known for.
Yeah. And
we also hold
yeah. And
so
he said,
also hold to the stars to some like crazy standard that we don't hold anyone else to, and I think that's unfair. You know, they're normal people. They can make mistakes. Everyone else makes mistakes. And I haven't seen anyone in the UFO community not make mistakes. And if TTSA makes one, it's like the biggest deal in the world.
But the question still is, Tom DeLonge has always been like this. They bought into this, like Bob mentioned, that they knew he had this problem right from the time the WikiLeaks happened, but they joined up with him. And the question still remains, Melinda, why are they leaving at this particular point all at the same time? And you brought it up with Jim, but are they going back to the government? And you heard when Lou was asked, he said, it's time to move from first gear to second gear. I'm not an entertainer. And then George asked him, and George would not have asked him unless he had some insight. Would you go back to the government? He didn't say, are you going back to the government? And so you asked, and that's why I keep asking, like, why are they all leaving, despite all the problems that Tom might have, despite what's happened? Why are they leaving at this particular point? He did acknowledge that he might be going back to the government, right?
But if Chris Mellon or Luis Elizondo go back into the government, you will stop hearing from them.
Yes.
They will not talk in public without their superiors telling them it's okay.
And by the way, you guys, they listen to everything we do. All our panels, they've been listening to. He said it gets noticed by the people in government when we're talking to the UFO community and our stuff is getting out there and getting seen. It gets noticed by those folks, and those folks get nervous. So he said the senators, the Congress people, the people in the briefings, the people with the task force, all of it. He said they get really nervous because they're like, look, you know, they're also concerned about their image and getting elected again. Hello, we all know the game, you know, and so they get very nervous. And so he said, you know, we're not going to go out of our way to go to ufology when those people say, please don't, because you guys, we still have a negative image out there in the world.
You know, one of the things that really kind of stood out to me regarding these pieces was the UFO community, the experiential community that is out there. And I disagree with, you know, I mean, I shouldn't say I disagree. I understand what Melinda just said about Jim Semivan regarding the government wanting to get a little nervous when people are talking about this. But imagine how much more success this group could have had if they would have taken the time to accept and almost find a place for the UFO community. Look, we're not all wingnuts. We're not all tinfoil conspiracy theorists. Sure, we may have a lot of information that is a little mixed up and confused and convoluted, but in the same breath, I look at the panel right in front of me here. there's a lot of brain power right here that could be beneficial to getting a message like the TTSA out, except they've gone out of their way to go the opposite direction regarding the UFO community. Yes, we already know. Yes, we're already believers. Yes, we are people who don't need conviction that this is going on, but they could have used the support. It wouldn't have been unanimous, but it would have been a lot better than the tactics that they did use in regards to trying to formulate a plan to get the mainstream on board. We're connected to the mainstream. We may be alternative people, but we're connected to the mainstream because we're still talking.
I disagree, I guess. I think that Lou has done a ton of interviews. Chris has reached out. Hal Putoff answers a lot of emails. He went on Black Vault, Unidentified, Adam Keogh. That's just Lou. And that's just recently, or off the top of my head. So I feel like they have been in contact. Now, there's other guys like... More recently, Danny,
but up for the first couple of years, they have, and this is one thing I talked to someone today about it, in regards to this person being on the TTSA board. And he understood exactly what I said, and he agreed with me. He stated point blank, for the first couple of years, they only went on radio shows or podcasts that were completely supporting them. They did not go on any type of show or podcast that was not in the TTSA vault.
I've studied the presidents since the 1980s, so I would defend their not giving interviews, because the president gives a lot of interviews, but they've never given one to me, and I've worked on the president for 35 years. So, I mean, I can see that they want to do their PR thing and only talk to whoever they want to talk to get the best spin on what they're selling, because basically they're selling something. And but I want to poke the bear, because we've got one guy who hasn't talked yet. I want to bring Rob Freeman in here, because the question I keep asking is, why are these guys leaving at this time, and where are they going? Because they've got to make money, except for maybe Lou Mellon. But Rob Freeman was involved in the app that is being used by TTSA that they've promoted endlessly, and this is all this tech, and it's connected to the government, and they're getting this, this high-tech artificial intelligence where you can put it on your cell phone and you know exactly what's going on. So, Rob, I asked you just in the last couple of days, you helped design this thing. So I said to you, did you make the deal with Luis Elizondo, or did you make it with TTSA? And so the other question I have, not only why are these guys leaving at this particular time and where are they going, but what happens to all this technology? Because Luis Elizondo, it's like the whole thing I had with the videos, is when you resign from the Secretary of Defense or from the Defense Department, you don't get a bunch of videos as your goodbye presidents. And so all this technology that they've developed that's being used to track UFOs and all this kind of stuff, Luis Elizondo is walking away with all this, without all this stuff. So can you talk to that, the fact that you made the deal with TTSA? And that leads to the question is, what happens to all the technology stuff? Because it's like Luis Elizondo and these guys have to be walking away from it. They cannot walk away with all the stuff they developed in TTSA.
No, absolutely true, Grant. My partner, Ryan, and myself, we developed that app. I met Luis Elizondo at that conference that Rich Hoffman had there, what was it, spring of last year. And Lou looked at the app, he got very excited, and he says, I want to meet with you and your partner in our office in San Diego, and call me back when we're away from the conference, and if you don't, I'm going to track you down. So we did talk. We flew out there. Mark McNabb came out there with us too. We spent a whole day with the guys, and I can tell you, from my point of view, Lou is the most passionate of everybody. Okay, and we made the deal, but the deal was made with TTSA. The deal was made with TTSA. They have the app. I do get CC'd on various aspects of the progress, and I have to say, honestly, it's not going very fast.
Okay, I'm just telling you, they don't have the necessary infrastructure. They have smart, talented volunteers, but what they need is paid people.
Well, just to add to this, I did ask James Fox yesterday about what was on Twitter, and his response back to me was, I can neither confirm nor deny. So we can keep following that.
I don't have a quote from him, but I listened to the interview and I just took notes, and he basically said he, Mellon, and a few others, he won't name them, may start working on a very hard-hitting documentary on a global level, because that was how he was going to reach a global audience.
Lou and Chris, if they want to stay out of government and do stuff, I believe they can do stuff. They're connected. They got Congress to listen. They got Congress to listen.
Can I go back to Dave Altman and to Dave Scott? You guys heard this many months ago, so you must have some inclination of why this was going to happen. There had to be a reason you knew it was going to happen. Why do you think they're leaving?
Well, the only thing that I didn't know they were leaving, I just knew that they were having problems with the show. And I really probably shouldn't even have said anything now that I think about it, considering I still work in television. So, but yeah, but it was a rumor. It wasn't like anybody told me and said, you can't tell anybody. But there was a rumor going around that the show was canceled.
Now, was that from a production standpoint, or was that from a rating standpoint? Do you know?
Well, it came from somebody that works in production. So, they didn't tell me why.
I'd just like to say that, what To the Stars has accomplished, and a lot of that was probably due to Elizondo and Mellon, but what they've accomplished, just because of what's happened now, nothing can take that away from them. What's happened in the last 3 years for the UFO community, for the world, none of that is ever going to stop. And it's just this ending or transition or whatever you want to call it. It's not the end of disclosure. And there's still a lot of things to be positive about. Lou and Mellon are free to do what they want still. And but everything TTSA has done in the last 3 years, we just can't take that away from them. Yeah, the investment stuff is weird, and I'm concerned about that. But what they've accomplished and how they've moved the ball forward, you can't take that away from them. No one can.
Grant, I think that Lou feels really held back. He's very frustrated. He wants to move forward. He's watched how they've done it there at To the Stars, and he's looking for his own model that he feels will be successful. To the Stars have gotten bogged down with all this financial stuff. Lou has seen it all. He's seen everything that's happened here. He's being held back. He's breaking free of it. He wants to go alone with the other guys. They will come up with a model that actually works, and they'll just shoot ahead. That's my feeling.
Okay. Do you think because I'll give you my prediction. They're into the technology. They're not into the, people getting entertained or anything like that.
Well, and I think
this thing about the threat and the technology and all this kind of stuff.
And I think I can tell, I don't know about you guys, but from day one with Steve Justice's involvement that, he was just in it for the technology, obviously.
Yeah. And there may be suitcases full of money now.
The other money issue is, I was told that the people, and we already know this, but the people who work inside the UIP task force, they're praying, quote unquote, praying for the funding to come through. So yeah, hopefully that happens. And once it happens, it'll be a new ball game. It's exciting to see 2021.
Well, this may indicate they may be sure they've got it, because they're recruiting the 3 top guys that they need as advisors. I think we have to look at this as still optimistic that the ball is still moving down the field. It's just that it is reshuffled down.
I agree that it's moving down the field. I'm sorry TTSA had a problem. I thought they were going to have problems. I hate to be right, and I'm glad Mellon and Luis Elizondo are going to go on and do things.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, everybody, I think that's a nice positive note to end things on for tonight. So I would just like to thank everybody for being here, and thank Dave and Rich for being here for the first part. And Grant, was there anything you'd like to say to close us out?
No, I'll leave it up to you. Merry Christmas, and let's see what happens in 2021, and we'll do another panel down the road when a few more signs are shown as to who was right and who was wrong tonight.